Okay, guys, I have an update on what is happening in Ukraine. The war between Russia, Ukraine, the US, and NATO, and whether we are in the beginning phase of the World War III or the tribulation. God has revealed to me and shown me what has been happening and what is to come. I'm going to start with Russia-Ukraine war, the truth, what God has shown me. God told me that Russia won the war in Ukraine against the US, despite what the Western mainstream media has been telling us. Even though the war in Ukraine is still ongoing, victory and defeat have already been decided by God. God showed me and told me that most dangerous time, the brink of nuclear war, was back in spring of last year. Russia neutralized all of the nukes by the number of thousands that were built and housed in hundreds of facilities and sites in Ukraine, including missile launchers, as these were a serious threat to Russia. The US lost several hundred trillions of dollars invested in Ukraine to become one of their puppet states to wage war against Russia. During this war, in addition to US supplying all sorts of military weaponry to Ukraine, they supplied hundreds of thousands of man-pads, which is man-portable air defense system, such as Javelin, Stinger, and other types of RPGs to Ukrainian soldiers, hoping to take out as much Russian military tanks, armored vehicles, helicopters, even the jets as possible. The result turned out to be the opposite of what the US expected. It was the Ukrainian Kiev army, their military tanks, armored vehicles, helicopters, and fighter jets that got nearly all destroyed by Russia. The loss of Ukrainian military men and the casualties has been devastating, and the Russian military lost only very few of their men, partly due to their far advanced military hardware and technology. They have special safety systems that are built in to all of their tanks, armored vehicles, helicopters, and fighter jets that prevents enemy-launched missiles, including man-pads, from hitting the target. These military machines are immune to these missiles, heat-seeking infrared and laser-guided missiles, making them all rendered useless. Not to mention their superior radar and EW electronic warfare systems to jam enemy missiles, fire aircraft, even their radar and communication systems. That is how Russian military has been able to complete their mission successfully on a daily basis and winning the war. Ukraine is on the brink of collapse, and more military men and mercenaries are surrendering. As of right now, Russia is finished cleaning up to denazitize Ukraine, to protect itself from nuclear threats, and to set Ukraine free from the US control. But in the Western mainstream media, they have been lying about the war in Ukraine in every possible way to brainwash, train the people of the general public into believing otherwise. They want you to believe Russia is evil, who is out to devour other nations like Hitler, when in fact it is the US ruling class practicing these evil crimes. The more people watch the news, including YouTube and Google, and believe what they say, the more confusion it will create in the end. it will catch up to them in the end and come to a real shock and regret for believing or trusting in their own government. God told me that the US will lose in this war miserably and lead to financial collapse. They will not be able to take back Ukraine. Europe, NATO nations, will back off and be friends with Russia. God told me that the US and NATO combined will not be able to stand against Russia in the event of all-out war. Russia is far ahead in military power. That is the truth. God told me that North Korea and Iran are also superior to the US in respect to military power. That is why the US has not been able to invade those countries. God told me that Russia, North Korea, and Iran, these three particular countries, have been reserved and preserved over 1,000 years to punish America. That is the sole purpose why they were created by God. It is not China. Despite what the general public has been hearing, the reports and rumors about China's military power, it is not a threat to the US. God told me that if China and US were to get into war, China will lose. But the truth is that China is not out to invade other countries and certainly not interested in fighting America. It is the US ruling elites that want us to believe Russia, North Korea, China, and Iran are our enemy. I would have thought that the war in Ukraine is the beginning phase of the World War III and will lead to nuclear war. But God told me that we are far from it. He said that the World War III is far away from where we are now, and that World War III will not lead to nuclear war, and they are two very different things, meaning that they are far from each other. Currently, God is using Russia to stop America from committing serious war crime that would lead to nuclear war, and the US will lose in the Ukraine war and lead to financial collapse, the collapse of the ruling elite empire. As a result, the gasoline system here in America will go down. That means no more gasoline-powered vehicles. God says He will keep the electricity running because that is one of the free energy sources in addition to solar power He wants us to use. He says that we are entering the period of great revival, not tribulation. The event will make us feel like tribulation, but it is not. He says that nuclear war is a very different thing and will be the triggering point of the tribulation, a final judgment from God. It is much worse than beyond human imagination, as no man has ever seen or experienced before. He says it will come when virtually everybody commits sin, primarily sexual perversion, which leads to murder and the eating of the flesh. God says, therefore, pray for the nation and the whole world not to fall ourselves into these sexual murder crimes that also include abortion. Pray that people repent to God by stop sinning. That is what God wanted me to share to the general public, to wake them up, that we cannot live in sin, that we have to do our best to turn away from sin, seek God, and ask Him for help so that we can overcome sin and walk with Him together to live our lives for God. That is God's heart. All right, God bless you.
Боевая тревога. Боевой курс 80, глубина 45 метров, держать ход 4,5 узла.
Боевая тревога, ракетная атака. Создать рубежи обороны на 59-м, 79-м шпангоуте. Командир рубежа обороны, командир 3-го, 6-го отсеков. Запрещены переключения в электроэнергетических сетях, в системах ВВД, ВСД, гидравлики, в системе холодной воды.
Начальник ракетной атаки готов. Есть подчинение.
Товарищ командир, отсеки ПЛ к бою готовы, присутствуют все.
Боевой курс 80.
Глубина 45, крен 0, дифферент 0, лодка держит глубину.
Товарищ командир, есть нормальные условия старта.
Врывается крышка, шаг номер 1.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Есть старт ракеты, шаг номер 1. Есть старт ракеты, шаг номер 1, осмотреться в отсеках.
Есть старт ракеты, шахта номер 1, осмотреться в рубках.
Есть старт ракеты, шаг номер 1.
Товарищ контролер ГКП. Произведен старт баллистической ракеты из шахты номер 1. Замечаний нет.